Hello and welcome everyone. This is the ONINO 2025 July community update. As always, let's give everyone a couple minutes to join and then we're going to start right into it. Really happy to have you here. Hang tight and listen to the great music. Hello everyone, for the new joiners, this is the ONINO 2025 July community update. We're going live in a couple seconds. Let's just give everyone the opportunity to join and then we'll be there right away. So, hello and welcome to the ONINO July 2025 community update. We're really happy to have you here as always. As you know, or do not know if you're a first joiner and listener, this is our monthly update call where in the monthly cycle we give you updates regarding what's been happening at ONINO, some previews, some reviews, we answer questions. So feel free to ask questions anytime, feel free to attend those meetings, to attend those calls and live streams. And also, if you're interested in what we have done before, you'll find them on a YouTube or Telegram. On YouTube, they're on streams because we live stream them. They're not seen as videos. So feel free to listen to this one, to the next one, and the past and previous. And really happy to have you here. Today, we're going to talk about Karen first, joining as head of marketing. Then we're going to do an EFCC recap and talk about events. We are talking about the tokenization engine, which is a pretty huge announcement. We are going to talk about customers, and then there's question time with your questions and further on live questions as well. I would say let's jump right into it with Karen. Karen, the mic's yours.
Thank you very much, Alex, for that. Hey, everyone, I'm Karen. I've joined, obviously, ONINO as head of marketing. Give you a little bit of background about myself. So I've been in marketing for about 30 years now, working across both agency and client side for some of the major brands in FMCG services and technology. Over the years, I've led everything from big brand campaigns to hands-on growth strategies. So the full spectrum of marketing, really. About 9 years ago, I was bitten by the bug. That's the Web3 bug, really, and the blockchain bug. And I made the shift into Web3. And honestly, I haven't looked back since. Then I started really working closely with various kind of blockchain and DeFi projects to help them grow communities and build traction. So that's a little bit of background about me. Why did I join ONINO? I suppose you're asking. Well, what really drew me into sort of exploring ONINO and joining ONINO was their vision, bringing real-world usability to blockchain in a way that feels intuitive and scalable. I mean, that was really kind of a selling point for me. And after years in Web3, I've seen plenty of hype cycles, a lot of communications and nothing behind it. And ONINO was completely the opposite. And it stood out because of its focus on building real infrastructure for tokenization. So the chain, for instance, is not just another L1, it's a foundation for meaningful applications. And I saw a team that wasn't chasing trends, but instead building for long-term impact. That really kind of resonated with me perfectly with where I believe the space needs to go next. So for me, joining ONINO wasn't just about marketing another project. Rather, it was about helping shape the next phase of adoption in Web3. So what's the overall direction that I hope to sort of, take ONINO's marketing, communications and operations in? So my focus really will be in building a marketing engine that's not just reactive, but strategic, scalable, and aligned with the bigger mission at ONINO. That starts with sort of strengthening, I suppose, the internal marketing foundation. So setting up the right systems, processes, and resources we need to move faster and smarter, really. So from content and campaigns to data and tooling, we're building an infrastructure that allows us to consistently communicate value and scale attention, which obviously in the sort of cluttered space that we all know is very, very important. At the same time, I'm focused on growing and energizing the community. So from early believers to newcomers to our community and developers for the chain. What that means is really crafting narratives that resonate really with these, the various players and community members, running high impact campaigns, activating various partnerships, and making sure the community feels both heard and empowered. I'm also working closely with the team to align our messaging and positioning with what the market really cares about. So clear utilities, strong fundamentals, and long-term value. So whether it's staking, identity, or powering real-world use cases, my job is to make sure that the value comes through in everything we do. In short, I'm here to help turn ONINO's tech into a story people want to be a part of and build the momentum that takes us really to the next level. Apologies about my croaky voice. Hopefully on the next one, it won't be as croaky. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Kai for the upcoming events. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Super nice to have you on board. Let's jump right into a little event recap on the next slide. So as we have teased already in the Telegram group in the last week, we have spent the last week visiting ETHCC in Cannes, which is one of the, maybe if not even the largest Ethereum-focused crypto event in entire Europe. Here for a quick start, you see some of the nice pictures we have taken. So for example, on the left side, bottom down, it's a bit hard to see on the screen. We have one of the core developers of ERC-3643, the T-Rex protocol, which is one of the most widespreadly adopted RWA tokenization standards that also we are building on. It was super inspiring to hear him talk, for example. And on the right side, we even see a small little pic of Vitalik Buterin himself. Fortunately, we had the pleasure to meet him live on stage and witness one of his speeches, which was very inspiring. Just some visual insights first. And now we can jump on the next slide into the actual recap. The idea for today's community update is that we give you a more in-depth insight on what's actually happening behind the scenes of such an event, such as ETHCC. And we also want to share some of the learnings that we have taken during this event with you guys. So on the one hand, which is one component that is fundamental to every conference, is on the one hand talks, right? And usually, I gotta be frank, these talks are sometimes a bit superficial, especially for my taste as the CTO. I have to say I was really super surprised by the quality of the talks and keynotes we have witnessed at ETHCC. It was super in-depth, it was super technical in a good sense, and it was amazing speakers. And especially for me as a CTO, was invaluable technical insights and also best practices that we could learn from some of the greatest. The spectrum was vast. It went from actual Ethereum core developers that told us about their largest fuck-ups and how they fixed it actually, until to, for example, the head of security of Polygon, who shared his security best practices, and many more. So this was actually a super valuable insights that we could draw from these talks and keynotes at the conference. For example, it was insights on optimization and stability of the actual core protocol, as well as the node client software. So really on the lowest technical infrastructure level you can get. There was a lot of super interesting insights on cybersecurity, as well as current threats, for example, threats by North Korean actors who are currently infiltrating tech companies across the globe. For example, there were a lot of security best practices and also concrete and specific tips and guidelines to follow that were shared on stage. And we also learned a lot of the current state of the art of privacy in blockchain, starting from ZK proofs, zero knowledge proofs, over to FHE, fully homomorphic encryption, which is also a super promising technology that we are about to use in the future. So I just got to say the technical insights that we could get from the talks on stage as well as the keynotes were super valuable for us. Then second, this is also like always the second component on such a conference. You don't only go there and visit some talks and keynotes, but you also look out for interesting people that could be great for collaboration, and then you meet up with them in person and can discuss potential synergies. And also this time we had a lot of productive meetings with potential partners, from which I just want to share a few examples. On the one hand, we had great talks with law firms, which is actually a super interesting connection for us at ONINO, because try to see it that way. Many times, if people who come from traditional finance space, especially, many times they want to start or get into tokenization, their first point of contact is actually a law firm, right? Because they first reach out and say, hey, I want to get into the tokenization space. How should I start off? What's the legal implications I have to think of? So basically, lawyers are oftentimes the first ever contact for people who are getting into tokenization. So, and then if we, as a partner for these law firms, provide a great tokenization platform, then we can actually be placed by these lawyers in the second step, right? Because in the first step, the people get the legal consultation, and then now they actually know about tokenization, they know how they can do it, they know the legal frameworks, then they actually want to get their hands dirty and start on with tokenization. And that's exactly where we come into play, and where our lawyer or law firm partners can then recommend us as a tokenization platform. So basically a great network and sales partner for us. Second, on the more technical side of things, we've also had great talks with validator node operators. That's also an interesting insights that probably many of you don't know about, but there's a lot of actually very large corporations that professionally run validator nodes. And actually several of them approached us and were interested in running validator nodes on the brand new ONINO network, which is a great sign for us. We're now in talks with them, basically sharing all the tech details with them, discussing integrations, discussing partnerships, which is super interesting for us, because on the one hand, this boosts, of course, the growth of our network, right? But just increasing the size of our network measured in validator nodes. And on the other hand, also, of course, boost decentralization, because obviously the more validators we have, the more decentralized our network also is, right? Thirdly, we have also had several talks with global payment providers as partners for our tokenization platform. Some of them really, really super interesting. For example, we started the discussions with MoonPay, that some of you might actually know from MetaMask, since they're actually integrated in the purchase crypto process of MetaMask. So we talked several synergies with them, for example, integrating them as a, so to say, payment widget, quote unquote, into the ONINO tokenization platform for crypto payments. Second, we are actually trying to work on a stablecoin sandwich solution together with them in order to enable easy and also cheap global payments, even for very special and exotic countries. And we're actually even in discussions with them about a potential research grant collaboration where we could use their technology for a German state-funded research grant. Then fourth, we have also had super interesting talks with security as well as privacy partners. So on the one hand, we talked with the top-notch security companies that actually audited the largest protocols and apps in the space, how they can help us to optimize the platform security, and are now getting quotes from one after the other. And second, we also talked with a lot of state-of-the-art privacy protocols, for example, such as Zama, who use FHE, who could, in theory, technically serve as a potential base technology and also partner for our concept of the private subchains that we're going to implement in the future. And last but not least, to finish up basically whom we've talked with, we've also met a lot of interest from several VCs from the Web2 and Web3 space, who are currently actually looking to deploy capital and who are actually super interested in what we are doing at ONINO, and who reached out to us and wanted to start a conversation with us. Now we're actually in talks with these VCs from all different backgrounds, and just excited to see where the journey goes with them. So we covered now, I think, the two largest aspects of each conference, right? Like on the one hand, we have talks and keynotes that basically serve as an inspiration. On the other hand, we have basically one-on-one meetings with potential partners, which are super interesting from a business development perspective. But from my perspective, on each conference, there's also always a third component, which is the, so to say, spirit and motivation that the conference conveys. And there I have taken two key insights that I want to share with you in this community update. On the one hand, we have attended several keynotes and also talked with a lot of people who are working in the institutional space. And the message that came out there is quite clear, right? So as we all know, large institutions are always a bit cautious, and it always takes a while until they get processes rolling in and until they adopt new technologies. But the message was very, very clear that institutional adoption of crypto, and especially of tokenized RWAs, is clearly picking up and is clearly on the rise, which is great for us as a platform. And there was a second message, a second spirit that was conveyed during the conference by basically every participant, by every speaker on stage, and most importantly, it was also clearly framed by Vitalik Buterin himself during his talk on the stage. I think he summarized it quite nicely, so I just want to end with a quote from him. Build to create true value for users instead of building just for the sake of great tech. And I think this is actually a perfect summary. Vitalik really hit the nail on the head here, because, and funnily, I think this is also perfectly aligning with the values that we at ONINO are actually standing for since our very first days. We don't just want to build great tech just because it's cool tech, but we have also always been focused on actual use cases and actual cases that provide value for the end users and make the world a little bit of a better place. And yeah, for me personally, it's super great to see that this spirit was conveyed across the whole conference and was even promoted by Vitalik Buterin himself in his keynote speech that he held. So yeah, this was a little rundown with our insights, with our partnerships, with our talks, our learnings from the ETHCC conference last week. Hope it was interesting for you guys. And if you have any more requests here, if you want to get even more behind the scenes and want to get to know more what we're actually doing there, what we've been doing there, just let us know in Telegram, as always. And with that, I think we can jump to the next slide, where we're going to hold a little outreach or outlook to the upcoming events, just so you know what's still on the agenda for us in the rest of the year. So in September, we're actually going to attending Bits and Pretzels in Munich, which is one of the largest German startup conference, especially for, of course, digital startups. In October, on the agenda, we have the Token 2049 in Singapore, one event that we've already attended last year, which was great in terms of outcome and partnerships. In October, we'll also be attending a more specific conference, which is the Expo Real in Munich, which is one of the largest German real estate conferences, which we are basically gonna visit to promote our or the aspect of or the notion of tokenized real estate there to the more traditional real estate developers. Then in November, we're going to attend the Web Summit in Lisbon, one of the largest startup conferences in the world. And then we'll be closing off the conference year with the Slush in Helsinki also in November. And yeah, as always, we're looking forward to these events, looking forward to great new partnerships and meetings we're going to make there. And as always, not getting tired of saying it, if any of you guys is visiting these events as well, just hit us up. We're more than happy to meet you guys in person. Always great for us to meet our community members. And yeah, with that, I would like to pass the ball over to Lucas, who's going to present the ONINO tokenization engine.
Awesome. Thank you, Kai. So Kai already mentioned, and that's also something we've seen a lot in the recent months, is that the adoption and also just the point of view of institutional companies and just also financial institutions or bigger companies all around the world towards blockchain as a technology is really changing fast the recent months. You could almost say it started about a year or a year and a half ago. And we captured that and thought we have to change something in terms of how tokenization is done. And that's why we are really proud to present you the ONINO tokenization engine today. We're just going to go through it in a few slides on a high level, but this is really the foundation for how tokenization of financial and real world assets will be done in the future and how it will be done on the ONINO blockchain itself. So on the next slide, you can basically see a broad overview, basically the key components of the tokenization engine. So we've been working on this for quite some time, and it will be an update that will come with the ONINO tokenization platform V2 later this year. And the three basic components is inbuilt compliance and technology for anyone that wants to issue tokenized assets completely independently. Anyone can do it, and it's completely borderless, and anyone who wants to can access this. It is directly on the ONINO blockchain, but also built for multi-chain support in the future. So we all know tokenization will not only happen on one blockchain, so we always have to built with multi-chain capabilities in our mind. And it also includes an on-chain identity stack. For the ONINO OGs, that is, you may maybe see one of our earliest ideas back in here again, bringing identities onto the blockchain, which is quite exciting. But a main question arising from this is always, why should we develop our own tokenization and what essentially is in it for us? We've put it on the next slide, kind of 4 major things we see where we really can create not only value for clients, but also for anyone in the whole ONINO ecosystem. So on the next slide, you basically see the first point that is, for me personally, really exciting is with our native tokenization engine, we immediately have support for all MiCA countries and potentially beyond to tokenize assets directly in these jurisdictions. You might know from the partnerships before, like CashLink, we specifically focused on Germany. Now we made the whole thing more flexible and us able to support much more than just the German market. Everything is fully built on chain. Everything is fully flexible and modular, and always with compliance in mind. You will see that whole structure later on. With that, for us as ONINO ourselves, we reduce many dependencies we have on third-party providers because it is all built in our engine. And as mentioned before, we are ready for multi-chain compatibility, and thus will be compatible with a lot of tools that are currently being created in the tokenization space itself. So how exactly do we do it? On the next slide, you see the basis for the whole tokenization engine. And Kai already mentioned it, like we've met with the core developers behind the ERC 3643 token standard. It basically is almost seen as the global standard for security token and tokenized RWAs as of now. And you can imagine it like it is an extension to the classical ERC20. So it extends the functionality of a basic token with multiple other functions that on the one hand implement control mechanisms that are needed to comply with certain types of regulation that can be recovery functions and other ownership functions. And then you can also add compliance functionalities. And these compliance functionalities, most of the time, are directly tied to on-chain identities, which are part of the tokenization engine, where you can, for example, you can determine an asset can only be transferred to people in a certain country. So with an on-chain identity, you can directly associate a wallet to that property without it being publicly available. It's fully anonymized, but the token, you can say so, knows that you are basically part of that country or not. So the transfer will either work and you can take part in trading or investing in that asset, or the transfer will not work. And this is the beauty of the whole concept of the tokenization engine and building on that standard, is that you have the functionality like you would have with any actual security, but you don't need to have it for anything. So you basically can just select what you want, and through the fully modular system, all these things will be deployed in the background for anyone issuing through the ONINO platform, and they will never have to touch a single line of code, which is the beauty of anything that we do. On the next slide, you can kind of just really see the process at a really, really high level. And we try to keep it high level, and that's what we want to also translate towards the user, is to make it as simple as possible. It really is almost as simple as just going through 4 steps to bring your asset on chain and deploy it, distribute it, and make it investable as an RWA. So it always starts with the issuer. So the issuer has to, of course, go through onboarding. He has to, of course, create the necessary legal documentation. But once that's set in place, he can immediately create the token or the security token on the ONINO platform. In the background, once he created the token, all the compliance modules he needs and also the identity registry is deployed on the blockchain. And from that point on, you will be left with a tradable tokenized asset or tokenized real world asset on the blockchain. So it's, as you can see, it's a really straightforward and simple process. Anyone who can read essentially will be able to do it. And we have really created a mechanism and adapted it to the ONINO blockchain that opens up the door for much more flexible and global tokenization of assets. One key component of that, as already mentioned, is the so-called on-chain ID, which we see on the next slide. That I just want to quickly cover. That could be something we can go into more detail on the release of the tokenization platform. Basically, the on-chain ID framework is really close to what we imagined when we started out with ONINO, bringing identification on-chain, making it trustless in a way that it's fully anonymized and the user can control how the identity can be used. So the three key components are starting with the decentralized and immutable aspect of the on-chain ID. So all IDs are stored on the blockchain and ensure that they cannot be hidden or deleted, but they can only be accessed by organizations that have the rights to access and identify a user. All standards for the on-chain ID are completely compatible with existing standards in the whole blockchain space, and also compatible with, for example, regulation the European Union has put out there for actually validating and seeing such an identity as valid. And then it is fully built around the concept of claims and verifiable credentials. So it's essentially, you can imagine it in a way that me as an owner of a wallet, I can hold certain claims, and an institution such as a KYC provider can attest claims to my wallet. So basically, I have a wallet and it holds the claim as I'm older than 18, because an institution, the KYC provider, once verified that I was 18. And thus I can also use multiple different wallets and access the same claims and create a fully decentralized account and identity system that can be not only reusable, but is much more efficient than other methods and fully decentralized. This is all part of the tokenization engine and will be shipped out of the box for anyone using the ONINO tokenization platform V2. Which brings me to the last slide of the tokenization engine section, which basically right now we are still working on a few changes, especially on the on-chain identity system and the security token stack, so we know everything runs smoothly and fully secure before we want to go out and release it. But the official release of the tokenization engine will come with the V2 of our tokenization platform that you will see later in the year. And with that, I will give the rein back to Alex to talk about the next section.
All right, Lucas, thank you very much. Pretty big one, so I hope this gets picked up in the way it should. We'll definitely talk about it in another segment as well with a blog article. We'll talk about it in the socials. But as always, we try to keep the big news for you as first. Also, something else we have listened to is customers. You've been asking for a long time. I mean, we have been building for a very long time now, and good things take time. And I like to say, do good things and talk about it. We have been in a long phase of the do good things, and we're nearing the phase of the talk about it, or even in the phase of talk about it. I mean, Karen is a good example with him joining the team, and really happy to have you here, Karen. And also some other new joiners. So we have created a growth team, how we call it, which is a sales, marketing, business development all at once. Essentially all the ones that are there to bring ONINO out in the world. And yeah, to come back to the segment of customers, it's something that you have been asking for a long time. Many things we have not been able to talk about, and many things we still are not able to talk about. Unfortunately, the thing is, the bigger the projects we're working on, the longer they're going to take and the more impact they're potentially going to have, but also the higher the secrecy is, because sometimes it's really revolutionizing niches. And as I know that you're not happy about just hearing those things that are really unspecific, we're trying to go into the specifics and tell you essentially how we're doing things. And later on, by answering one of the questions that you have asked, also telling you a couple names. But yeah, to maybe go back to our products, on this slide, I'm going to talk about the ONINO platform. And to give you kind of an idea and to set the scene, at the moment, our focus is on gaining investors and projects on the platform. And what we have been able to do is that through funding, oops, spoiler, we have been having a conscious focus on truly profitable and solid projects. So we've not been working on the small ones that are quick money, cash in, but on the ones that really change things and are fundamental and big. So the ones with a long-term focus. And we have a fourfold strategy here. Essentially, the first point is the public platform go live, or the platform V2, as Kind Lucas named it. Essentially, it's a swift and a shift from the utility to the security token platform. And while it sounds small, it is pretty big, because one is just a utility token in brackets. I mean, utility tokens are complex as well if you do them legally compliant, but a security token is a full new game. So we have been integrating partners, we have been building features, and all those have led to now us at this point being able to really soon launch the public platform. Then it's about customers who use the platform for structuring and already have investors. So of course, if we build a financing platform through tokenization, most companies and most customers come with the idea of, hey, I want to raise funds through your platform. But many don't want to just raise funds. Many also already have investors, but their problem is allocating them and managing them and structuring all of this. And these are the customers that we're tailoring towards now at the moment. So rather talking about funds and banks and all those things, that will be going much more into detail at the end. Then the first step through those, our investor community is being built to really have an investment power. To the first step, tailored towards the customers that are primarily seeking funding and being able to serve those. And so this is a 3 or 4-step process, with which we're also eliminating the headache problem, which is you need investors to get projects, you need projects to get investors. This is how we're tailoring it to it, and essentially jumping ahead and above that. And in parallel, one thing I mentioned already are those long-term projects with high potential, and those are served through the ONINO white label platform. So where we will have the public ONINO platform, there will also be many, think of it as forks if we're talking in the blockchain space, individual white labels, individual instances of essentially almost the same tech, but in different design. For example, those could be music financing, film financing, or tokenized funds. But to go through it from A to Z, essentially those are those long-time projects with extremely high potential that we had the chance now through funding, which we're going to announce later on, to focus on. Not to have to rely on quick money, but to focus on the big things that really are going to change the game. And the first thing we're tailoring towards and we're focusing on here are banks. And our first client is Black Forest Capital Management. And they are also one of the investors. But again, as I said, more on that later. They're a Volksbank daughter, so it's a big German local bank, which is a big trust signal for us and for the tech we're building, for it to be adapted by such institutions. And we already have another customer, which we're going to be announcing really soon. Then we have other niches, which are, like I mentioned, music financing, which would be a platform that we are going to work on with well-known brands for tokenizing songs and other media. Film financing, which will be a platform for Hollywood and Bollywood film financing. And tokenized funds, which is a platform to tokenize and trade investments. And this is really interesting because it's extremely high volume, and also the efficiency that we have built through tokenization and blockchain really come into play here, as well as the adaptability and flexibility that the platform bring and enable. And with this, we'll jump right into the questions. And as I mentioned, some of the name dropping will be happening here, even more than what we just did. So, first question that we had was, are there any new partnerships? And as I said, we have the ability to go into specific, but also unspecific. So I want to tell you what we're working on. I am able to tell you a couple names, which is on one hand Black Forest, which are going to host one platform pretty soon. Soon still is relative because those things take time, especially talking to banks. And the other one is the Mannheim Business School, which will likely be announced even earlier. And for unspecific things where we cannot name things, but we can name the segments, are on one hand banks, financial institutions, music, film, real estate, and green energy, being solar, wind, battery farms, and charging infrastructure. And if we talk tech, then the partners that we can name are MoonPay, Tangany, and SumSub. So the next question was, who is interested in building or tokenizing? To go back to this, essentially all of the above mentioned, so banks, financial institutions, music, film, real estate, green energies, those are the big ones where we're getting a lot of interest from, and not just once or twice, but really many. So it's really, really interesting having those discussions and the interest, and we're already building a couple of those. So it's not just a talking stage, but really the building stage. But I mean, those are financial institutions. These are really big things, sometimes almost my English is broken. Revolutionizing niches. So those things do take time, unfortunately, but will be really interesting. The next question is, who are you trying to chase, and what are your plans to try to onboard them? Here again, all of the above mentioned. Generally, to put it, essentially it's the ones that use a tokenization platform to structure and not to finance in the first place, as I mentioned with the 4-point strategy before. And we try to differentiate between the standard clients, which do use debt tokenization for banks or our SMEs, and niches. And those are really interesting and creative sometimes, and those will be the white labels that are using a product. Next question, how is business actually going? Short answer, really good. The tokenization platform V2 is going live real soon, and the live one will be the public one that I'm talking about. White labels are already out there. Some we will be announcing, some we cannot talk about. But just so you know, the tech is already in use. But for the public ones, our public ONINO tokenization platform V2 is undergo also some security tests, and those do take some time. So timeline is not fully on us, but we will announce pretty soon once it's going to go live and when it's going to go live. But so really happy all in all with how the business is going. Next question is there still recurring revenue, and how do you plan to increase it? Again, short answer, of course, there is. We're a company that makes revenue and profit, and of course, investing of some of it. So we're not just growing revenue by all means, but also seeing to how can we grow the team size, how can we grow sustainably, and financing and funding is also part of this. So more to be announced on this pretty soon, but really happy with how this has been going. And how will we increase it is mainly the tokenization platform, which specifically are the white label platforms and projects on our own platform. The blockchain, of course, comes into play, but being financially viable with a blockchain is difficult, also because blockchains should be as decentralized as possible. So we don't want it to be our blockchain and to earn a lot of money with it. We want it to be the blockchain for the ONINO ecosystem and for any validator that joins in. So this is another story. So the revenue is driven big time by the tokenization platform. Okay, then the last question is, when will we be able to get additional applications that support secondary market trading for custom tokens on the ONINO chain? And just so you understand, we reworded those, but those were questions that were handed in by the community. And I think, Lucas, you wanted to answer this one.
Yes, of course. So luckily, we recently had a new addition to the team, which is Chili, who is doing a great job in supporting us in the whole aspect of business development, of which we have a big focus on creating more supporting infrastructure on the ONINO blockchain. It all for us starts with creating a reliable bridging infrastructure. These are kind of quick words, but that actually entails pretty much a lot, because most of you know the most hackable system of any blockchain is the bridge, which makes it for us really difficult to find the correct partner that we trust and that we want to work with. But this is something that is being worked on and will be the main starting point for us to support different altcoins and stable coins and wrapped versions on the ONINO blockchain. The same as the exchange integration that is currently being finalized, will also support this. Then that is the foundational layer for us to create even more applications. Let's create not only us creating them, but also any builder to create systems such as a DEX and other secondary market options directly on the ONINO blockchain. So we can't give you a concrete ETA on when this is finalized, but be aware the bridge is our main focus right now, having a two-way bridge for people to enter and exit the ecosystem. And from there, anything else will come quite naturally over time.
All right, and with this, Lucas, thank you very much for the last answer. We are going to the live segment of questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. So we'll be available to answer them even longer in written form. Also, because we're streaming on 3 platforms at the moment: YouTube, Twitter, and Telegram, or X and Telegram. So feel free to put them anywhere in the comment section or wherever, and we'll be doing our best to find them, answer them. And also feel free to always submit your questions in advance to this format, the ONINO monthly community update. And we'll be adding more updates or more formats at some point as well. So you can be looking forward to that. Also, Lucas is joining regular live streams on X or Spaces on a very regular basis as well. So if you're interested in those, he always posts them a couple hours before on our channels. But to wrap it up, thank you very much everyone for joining in, for listening, and for contributing. And see you and talk to you at the latest next month. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.